Welcome to today's event, Inside the Lines. The World Cup comes to New York, New Jersey. Today's event is co-hosted by the Center for Sports Management, housed in the Stillman School of Business, and the Center for Sports Media, which is in the College of Human Development, Culture, and Media. As we all know, the World Cup is coming to the United States this summer and in North America, with games also in Canada and Mexico. This year's World Cup is going to be bigger than ever with more teams, games, venues, and television hours. The epicenter of the World Cup 2026 is right here in New York, New Jersey. MetLife Stadium, home to the Giants and Jets, will host 8 games, including the final on July 19th. Joining us today to discuss World Cup 2026 and its impact on New York, New Jersey are 4 esteemed panelists, 2 here in the room and 2 here joining us from across the country on Teams. So now to introduce our panelists, right here in the room, right to my left, is a renowned broadcaster and journalist who spent 40 years at ESPN. He's an 11-time Emmy Award winner and won 4 Edward R. Murrow Awards, among others. He was ESPN's conscious and the voice of Outside the Lines. He's covered 7 World Cups and is the founder of the Center for Sports Media here at Seton Hall and one of the university's most prominent alums. Please welcome Bob Lee. To Bob's left is the city manager and general counsel for the New York, New Jersey Host Committee. She spent nearly 5.5 years working in the New Jersey governor's office, so I'm sure she has the battle scars there, and also spent a number of years working for private law firms. Please welcome Nathan-LaRusso. And joining us online at Teams is a former U.S. national team defender who played in the 1994 and 98 World Cups. He is Fox's lead studio analyst for soccer and one of the most recognizable names and personalities in U.S. soccer today. Please welcome Alexi Lalas.
Greetings.
Also joining us on Teams is another Seton Hall alum who has had a storied career in sports. He's the former executive vice president and general manager of the Meadowlands Sports Complex, was responsible for Giants Stadium and the old Continental Airlines Arena. He oversaw the 1994 World Cup here in New York, New Jersey. He's also the former co-owner of the New Jersey Nets and the current president of Positive Impact Sports and Entertainment. Please welcome Michael Rowe. Michael, I want to start with you, and let's go back to 1994 and the World Cup here in New York, New Jersey. Things have obviously changed a lot, but why don't you tell us about bringing the World Cup here to MetLife, or was called the Meadowlands or Giant Stadium back then, in 1994 and all that went into that.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good afternoon. I was worried that you would be asking me to compare 2026 to 1994. I would have had to defer over to Lauren because we have only the information that she will get and provide to us, which is coming more and more rapidly every day as her team gets more communications with FIFA. But in 1994, I don't want to say the Meadowlands was arrogant. We were very confident and comfortable with our event mix. The summer that the World Cup was coming, we had 15 sold out concerts. We had a tenant in the Giants football team that had absolute control over the building and the parking lots, who were not interested in working remotely that summer. And someone told us, actually it was Alan Rothenberg. I can start dropping some names, Bob. Alan Rothenberg told us that we had to widen the field and jackhammer the stadium to make the corner kicks a little more regulation. And the host committee, yeah,
have you gotten pressure to do that?
Yeah, not the biggest secret anymore, but we had the only non-regulation size field, so you know what our answer was. But there was a meeting. It was a nice breakfast meeting convened in New York where when we were bidding on the games, the governor wanted the games, but wasn't controlling a lot. He thought they'd be very good. We knew that Alan Rothenberg wanted the finals in LA, where he was an attorney and had promised LA that they would have the game. So we weren't bidding. We weren't over compliant and over giving a lot of extra concessions to get that finals game, which Lauren, required a lot of work and probably concessions that your law degree would probably have advised not to do. But we had a nice breakfast meeting, and we told them we would not jackhammer the stadium. This is what it was. And they told us they were taking the games either to New York, to a makeshift stadium they were going to build, or to the Yale Bowl. And we got back to New Jersey. Yeah, we got.
How old was that then? Is that? Yeah. I mean, it's barely standing.
Yeah, but well, obviously they were going to renovate it, but yeah. So we got back to New Jersey and informed our board of commissioners and the governor's office that there was pretty heavy competition, but we were okay coming in third because we were pretty busy, and John and Wellington Mara did not want to jeopardize the preseason games because we didn't know if we'd be able to rebuild those seats, put up the field wall, etc. Not to mention everybody's love of AstroTurf. So the best thing in the world in a negotiation happened. We were casually negotiating, and FIFA held a press conference in New York saying they were coming to New Jersey. Our negotiating tactics changed immediately, and we obviously fit it in. We did not again change the field, but we were able to get. We were having some banter to those that were not part of the sound check, and I hope they weren't, because we had a few things to say. But we wound up with 6 suites, 500 parking spots, and a bunch of other things, just because I don't want to say we took advantage, but we were pretty confident that they were going to name us since they said they were coming to New Jersey. We looked around and didn't see any other stadiums, and we made one of those wild guesses. The complexities that happened obviously were, getting the field in and getting it out and making sure we had the shows that were so important to us. The burdens that Lauren and her team are going through now with the extraordinary, I'll use the word exorbitant because she can't say it, requirements to fund huge amounts of money, and getting at sometimes pennies back in terms of assets and real estate back. They didn't exist, and Bob, being the legend that he is, when the NCAA started their tournaments, the Final Fours, they had a book, they had a Bible. It was about that thick. By the time we understand the 2026 Cup is coming around, there are numerous volumes. There are numerous extraordinary expenses that have to be paid for. Lots of fundraising. It's almost like a congressional candidate. Every 2 years you have to raise money. But the thing that was the most enjoyable was that in 1994 we didn't have to do the World Cup. We wanted to. We had the Final Four coming up 2 years later. And there was an emphasis on the sport. There was an emphasis on playing soccer introducing football to Americans, not necessarily the arm twisting and the gamesmanship. And it was just it was a much simpler time. And I say that to some of the veterans in the group. I don't see Mr. DeLuca. He's sitting in the second row, but Bob, I'll play to you. Things were simpler when people were more interested in the sport than necessarily the dollars. Why are we in stadiums for Final Fours instead of where everybody has played all year in arenas? It's the money about it. So, we enjoyed doing it. The Italy-Ireland match was one of the highlights of my career. When we finally got that in, I will tell you, we had a drink. It was an adult beverage. We enjoyed accomplishing something
That was a hot and humid day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. The next game, I think Norway played. It was more fun because there were ticket holders coming in and their faces painted with the cross on it, and ski poles in the parking lot at Giant Stadium. I mean, they were just things that just didn't make a lot of crazy sense. The one hurdle that we did have, Lauren just went through it. It was the same party, but I'm sure there were changes in philosophy, was that we had two host committees. One, when we started, which was Governor Florio's Democratic head, was the host committee chair. And then Governor Whitman came in and appointed her husband as the host committee chair. And their philosophies were a little different, but that was the biggest political issue we had. And the best thing that happened, and Lauren, I hope you go through it soon, was that Alan Rothenberg had a good business sense of getting reports back from the Charlie Stilitano site managers and the other host cities that it could not be centralized out of LA any longer. You had to delegate decisions back to the host committees. Yes, they had to follow the manuals. There was only 3 or 4 at the time. You probably have 30, but and then everything just opened up, and we were able to develop a relationship so that when we hear that there's no parking at MetLife Stadium because they've taken up all the parking with fences and compounds and stuff, we were able to talk to the site managers and have them move the fence a little bit here and a little bit there. And then we told them they needed parking for the Giants. The Giants didn't come. They did take off, but we had hundreds of spots that they vacated, which came into our area. And then
let's bring it to today. It's a different time, Lauren, and so talk to us about some of the differences between '94 and now, and the challenges that you guys are facing on a daily basis.
Sure. So first off, I just want to say thank you to Seton Hall and the Centers for hosting us today, and it's great to be on this panel with all of you. I think there's definitely differences, but there's so many similarities still. I remember when I first started this process in 2020, I read an article by George Zoffinger, who was a partner with Mike, and he was quoted in the New York Times, and I couldn't help but think, oh my gosh, it's 94, but it reads like as if it's 2020. The dynamic between New York and New Jersey, the dynamic with FIFA coming in and making all of these demands and trying to figure out how you're going to localize a global world event here and make everything work. I think that still is the same. We still have to meet all of the rights holders' needs for FIFA's commercial partners. Mike mentioned widening the field. That I'll never forget, one of our first meetings with FIFA where they said we had to do that. And I thought the head of MetLife, was just going to end everything right there. And so we were able, though, to find pathways forward. So Bob, as you mentioned, we did widen the field.
How
it
much?
Is public. Oh gosh, I think it's like a couple meters.
Each way?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah. And we did it over 2 years with the support of the state of New Jersey. I do have to say, some differences now might be just, how do you fund all of this? How do you make it all happen? Especially when it was something we wanted that final. So we were in a different negotiation posture than Mike said he was in '94. So we had during the negotiations for the final, we did actually have a really good working relationship with LA and Dallas, who were in the final march with us towards, who was going to get the most premier matches and who was going to get the most games and the opening and whatnot. And so I think the difference is how we went about negotiating was very different. We were very fortunate, though. We had a governor in New Jersey who was a huge soccer fan. He had been the ambassador to Germany during the World Cup there, and he knew exactly what the power of the World Cup could bring to a community, the economic impact, and it's just global viewership. And so we were able, with the attention of a governor like that, you can get a lot of resources. And so while we had a tough negotiation, we were able to go in there, with a lot of muscle and make things happen, like widening the field. We were able to talk with FIFA about the bigger picture, about the diversity of New Jersey, and just different things that we, had we not wanted the big game, maybe wouldn't have positioned ourselves, but we always walked into everything, and we still walk into everything we do as if, we're setting the bar, we're setting the exception to everything. And so I don't think Mike did that differently, though. So a lot of similarities, a lot of differences, but
how does that final go? Like getting the final, what's that
And
process?
taking it from Jerry Jones. That is the best part of it. As a Giants fan, I mean, that was just so bloody delicious.
Yes.
And you can say that. Go ahead.
Well, I'm very close with Monica, who runs the sports commission in Dallas. And so I, think they did the best, and she did the best for Jerry. But I do have to admit, on the day they made the announcement, we did not know. We did not know. And we were actually getting reports out from Fox that they had scripts that said it was Dallas. And so we went into everything just with, okay, we don't know what to believe. But we went in with an open mind, and we were going to do fireworks anyway. But I have to say, it meant so much for someone. I was born in New York, but truly raised in New Jersey, and to have this come back to our community, it meant the world to us. So, for Dallas and AT&T Stadium, they did their best, but I think, we won out for a lot of good reasons, and we're very excited to welcome the world.
Excellent. I want to bring you in, Alexi, having played in '94, having covered numerous World Cups, and now being with Fox. There's so many logistical, security, other concerns, the issues around the political and world climate. What do you see as some of the biggest issues and challenges heading into this World Cup?
I mean, it's interesting to hear the juxtaposition between the two, and as the saying goes, the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? And there are absolutely challenges both on and off the field that existed back in 1994. It's not to say that they necessarily should have been solved. I would think that anybody hosting a World Cup would face those challenges. I will say this: I do think the world is coming back, and our country is kind of coming into a very, very different landscape than 1994 in terms of the way that we look at soccer, and maybe the way that we appreciate what a World Cup can bring. But it doesn't take away, I think of two words when I think of a World Cup, whether it's 94 or whether it's 2026, and that's opportunity and responsibility. The opportunity, we talk a whole lot about, to maximize the world coming to our shores, the commercial and the message that it can send out to the rest of the world, but also to our own country, and then, on the field to progress the game. But then the responsibility, right? So, for me, obviously security is a huge thing. I want people to be excited about it. I want them to be energetic about what's going on. I also want them to be safe every place that they go. And, I'm sure all of the organizers and everybody will be holding their breath through the World Cup, wanting to make sure that it goes well, that people get into our country, that people get out of our country, that people that are in our country get to where they need to go in an efficient way so that they can enjoy it. And then that message that goes back out is one that's positive. But I get back to the opportunity. There are going to be a lot of people this summer, as far as we have come, that are still coming into the tent for the first time. And so for us, it's this incredible opportunity to expose the game to a whole new audience. And I recognize that not everybody is going to stay in that tent. But the reality is I still get people that will come up to me and talk to me about that summer of 1994, whether they were at the U.S. Games or whether they were in New Jersey or anywhere else. There's a lot of people that for the first time either were exposed to the game or the first time they were in their own country where it was treated with the respect that it deserves. And that's awesome. And I hope that many, many years from now, when people look back, Bob will still be around. I'll be long gone. But, people will look back and they'll be able to say, man, that summer of 2026, that was awesome. And I met this person here. And I had this experience here. And I saw this guy score a goal here. And I discovered, whether it's New Jersey or whether it's any place else, I discovered the people and the community through the World Cup, because this is an opportunity for people to see the country, whether it's their own or whether they're coming from other shores, to see it through the lens of a World Cup. And that is a really, really unique lens.
You talk about, Alexi, talking about 94. It's exactly the feedback I got. I mean, I grew up 7 or 8 miles from Giant Stadium. So to do the Italy-Ireland game there that Mike talked about, that day, as we suddenly realized the stadium is 80% full of the Irish. Where the hell did they come from? But through that World Cup, the sense of Americans discovering not just the sport, but the joy that goes with it. That was a celebration of the sport. That was a community of people who had never been to a full international, with the flags flying. Because frankly, to that point, if you were talking about soccer headlines, you had the Heysel disaster, you had riots overseas, and your visions as an American loosely watching soccer were not positive. That all changed with the World Cup of 94. And the attendance and revenue figures from 94 stood for how many? I mean, for a bunch of World Cups. But you talk about getting into the tent this year, Alexi. To actually walk into the tent, though, I mean, these ticket prices and the lack of transparency that have attended the ticket sales are, I think you're just beginning to get a sense of how this may play out. I mean, people have discrete tickets to certain matches, but if you want a big ticket, I mean, the get-in price for the final, which New Jersey will host, is 5 figures.
Yeah, let's talk about the 2 T's, and I want to start with you, Lauren. Tickets and transportation. Those are 2 of the hot button issues. Let's talk about tickets first. What role does the host committee have in tickets? How much of it's FIFA? And what sort of things can you do from your end or your organization to address this ticket issue?
Sure. So the host committee does not control any of the ticketing. We knew that from day one. It's controlled by FIFA. And we know that there was challenges with the pricing, and there would be dynamic pricing too that was tied to it all. So what we've done over the years is work with our communities in both New York and New Jersey to think through fan engagement, knowing full well that no matter what the price was at MetLife, I still will call it MetLife Stadium, but it's technically the New York, New Jersey Stadium.
Why not New Jersey, New York?
There are a couple of reasons. Our official host city name is New York, New Jersey. And so it's just reflective of our host city name. And don't kill the messenger here.
No, I understand.
But I do have to say, they've been a wonderful partner for New Jersey. This is the Jersey girl saying this. Mm-hmm. They've been a wonderful partner to us, and they are the world city. And so we stand by them. We're excited to be partners with them. And that's the name that we decided. Yeah. And so if you're going to blame someone, you could blame me.
No, I would never do that.
It was the right decision, I think, for us as a region. But going back to the ticketing, so no matter what the price was going to be, we knew it's an 80,000 person stadium. We knew we were going to have to do something with fan engagement in both New York City and New Jersey. And so over the years, we've worked really hard to think through official fan sites, as well as community-led engagements, that watch parties that will happen, hundreds of them throughout the state of New Jersey, even down to South Jersey, which I'm really excited that Philly is hosting as well, because we're able to really ignite the whole region there, as well as in New York and upstate New York as well, with the governor of New York has come in to think through fan engagement there. So while we can't get everyone there, I mean, in 94, admittedly, I was in a backyard in Staten Island watching, and I felt that joy still. It's still something that you can have permeate outside of the stadium, and that's why it's so important that we think through other ways. We are working with the city of New York and the state of New Jersey too, to think through some affordability ways that we can get our residents in there, but it's not the easiest, but we're trying to marry the community and outside engagement.
I want to call everybody's attention to, we just released the Seton Hall Sports Poll, did a survey on tickets amongst soccer fans, and the results were a little surprising. If we could get them up on the screen, and the end result, you could see here, the up top is the number of or percentage of people among Americans, among soccer fans, among avid fans who were interested in getting tickets, and then the number of Americans from these groups, or the number of these groups that actually got tickets. And as you can see from these graphs, whereas 10% of Americans were interested in tickets, but 64% of those from that group who were interested actually got tickets. If you go to the next group, 30% of soccer fans were interested in getting tickets, and 66% of those, and 67% of sports fans who wanted tickets ended up getting tickets. Your reaction to that, Bob?
Well, there's 6 million tickets for sale.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them are priced in the realm of reality. But it's this is, I mean, and Alexi can speak to this as well, I'm sure. When the World Cup was held here 32 years ago, how old was I? There were only 24 teams. We've doubled the number of teams. There are nations coming here, and you live for the expectation of the nice storylines, the Disney moments. They're not too common in World Cups. I mean, the World Cup is, you talk about a restricted country club. There are only 8 nations in nearly 100 years that have won the World Cup. And the English only won it because they hosted it. And the English fans here, I'll take you outside. We can continue the discussion. Point being that there's a lot of chaff and a whole bunch of wheat in this field. And so to have a ticket, it's great. It's a great experience. Whatever you've paid, I was talking to somebody yesterday who's with us today, and I think he nailed a pretty good match for $400 a seat. And you know what? In the economy where you're paying that for a Springsteen show on StubHub, it does make sense. But at the same time, getting to see the important matches, boy, that you will pay and pay mightily, because you're dealing with FIFA, which makes the Gambino family look like the Franciscans. That's the way they've done business forever, and that's the way they'll always do business. And we saw it firsthand in the change in leadership there 11 years ago, and nothing really has changed. The perception is that when you're dealing with FIFA, they're going to come in. It's like the NFL comes in with a Super Bowl and tell you what is what. Now they're doing this with, how many matches are there all told? 104 times a Super Bowl, which is astonishing, which is a reflection on you and your team and your staffs and all the other host cities being able to manage that. But at the same time, 100 and how many again? 104 interactions of that manual that Mike talked about being leafed through, and you got to do. FIFA owns the color white, I learned today. I won't say who told me that, but like anything connected with the World Cup, you can't publish it in white because FIFA, like the NFL owns Sunday, FIFA owns white. Who the hell knew this?
Alexi, you hear from a lot of fans, but let's turn to like American soccer fans that want to see the U.S. Team play. These tickets are going to be at a premium. Are hardcore fans going to be able to see the Americans play on American soil?
So a couple of things, and maybe this is just me being devil's advocate to Bob over there, but so first off, FIFA has 211 members, right? I mean, this is the upper echelon in the league, despite the expansion of this World Cup. My short answer to you is, yeah, there are going to be people that had wanted to see the World Cup that were priced out. Keep in mind, this is and always has been a bucket list type of thing for many people, whether they're coming from outside or whether they're in the nation that's hosting it. Obviously, U.S. is a little bit unique. We love to be, and I see there's probably some young folks there in the audience there. We love to be told by the young folks about the rich and the evils of the rich and all that. And in a certain sense here, that's what you're doing, is you are taxing the rich, or you're gouging the rich. You're getting them to pay. And what are you getting them to pay for? Ultimately, a FIFA World Cup, a men's World Cup, is what pays for the entire 4-year cycle and pays for what, 90+% of what goes on in FIFA. And while the World Cup is important, there's all sorts of other stuff and other programs that go. So, when it's somebody screaming and yelling about, quote unquote, the elites and the rich out there, this is an opportunity for you to get their money that then goes back into the sport that you purport to support all over the world in a million different ways. Now, I will say this, and to echo Bob's comments, that FIFA's a pain in the ass. All right, you should make T-shirts that say FIFA's a pain in the ass. They won't care, and everybody recognizes that.
They'll sell them, though.
This is nothing new. Yeah, they'd sell them, though, and they'd make that money. All of that is to say is, yeah, I think that this is going to be a big story. Keep in mind also that we've just come off World Cups in Qatar and Russia and South Africa. And so, going to places where there are stories beyond the kicking of the ball is nothing new. Going to places where there are cringe moments, where hypocrisy is rampant in terms of how we deal with those is nothing new. I don't think that is going to, when the final whistle blows, be the ultimate story, but people are going to have their eyes set on these environments, these 104 games, and there will be a compare and contrast with the previous World Cup, with 1994. What's the environment like? Is it loud? Are people excited, or are just people sitting there drinking their gin and tonics and looking the other way and taking selfies? Or is there going to be the emotion? Is there going to be the passion? Is there going to be the color that we associate not just with the World Cup, but with that U.S. World Cup back in 1994? I don't know. I don't know what's going on, but I hear it every single day from people that were excited about the World Cup, but now because of the cost, like we said, are priced out of it. But I think it's an interesting conversation. I think it's a complex conversation. It goes into free soccer. I'd love nothing more than every man, woman, and child in the U.S. to play for free. All right, who pays for all this free soccer? Who pays for all this stuff that's going on? So I don't begrudge FIFA for going and making as much money as they possibly can if, and this is a big if, and Bob will tell you this is a big if that money then goes back into the game globally. And if somebody can't go to a World Cup game this summer, but there is a field that happens somewhere around the world, or there is coaching education, or there is equipment, or there is safety, or whatever it ends up being in terms of a program from FIFA that lasts over the next cycle and more, is that a fair payment? Will people be okay with that? I don't know.
Just piggyback on that. So one of the things we've had to get creative, Alexi, while we think about what we could do outside of FIFA, and more power to them if they can fundraise, and we have to fundraise too for our community. And so what we do to make that look and feel, so it's not just at the stadium, is we've developed in New York, New Jersey, a regional brand. It's called the Welcome World brand, and we were able to. It has no commercial conflicts. It's a logo. We give it to all of our businesses. We're working with them on a rewards program where we will drive traffic out of city center into restaurants, into museums and cultural centers all over New York and New Jersey. We're also, we fundraise, as Mike said, we have to raise a lot of money. We're installing 26 mini pitches throughout the region in under-resourced communities, working with the U.S. Soccer Foundation. And so we're trying to make it such that you feel that impact long after the games end, but also, bring that excitement and that joy, and people can go into a restaurant and look at a menu and, pick something from a country that's visiting here. And so we're working with the restaurants to make it feel part of the fabric of your day.
That's great stuff. And it's happening in an open society with a vigorous press, the United States of America. When you talk about, and I'll cherry pick some of the words that my good friend Alexi just talked about, FIFA and accounting and money. How much is 2 + 2? And the first year business student is taught, well, what do you want it to be? And so, When you get into spreading money in places that you're saying it's going for, the proof's in the pudding. And there's a pile of federal indictments less than a dozen years old that suggest that we should watch carefully.
Let's bring in the second T, transportation. And so I want to start with you, Michael, and then get Lauren to react. I want to read a couple of headlines from the news lately. One, just a couple of weeks ago, that New Jersey lawmakers criticized World Cup plan to close Penn Station to commuters. Quote, "This will be a huge disruption." If any of you missed it, it was leaked, I'm told, that Penn Station will close for 4 hours prior to each match here in New Jersey for non-ticket holders. Then if we go back a little bit to the Club World Cup that was here last summer, a headline from the New York Post, MetLife Stadium's biggest issues ahead of World Cup were massively exposed. As somebody now, the outside looking in and who's kind of lived it in a different time, how do you see this, Michael? What's your reaction to some of those headlines and from the outside looking in, how do you view some of these issues or concerns?
Let me do the T word second, if I can, real quick. And I think this transportation is really the cause of, as Alexi was talking about, what 1994 exposed. I was fortunate to go see some football in Europe, and understood that it was more than a sport. It was a culture. It was family. It was religion. And when we were selling, if you will, or trying to get stakeholders engaged in '94, soccer was a sport. If your soccer team doesn't win in Europe, you don't go watch a hockey game the next day. You don't go watch a football game or a basketball game. That is it. Which caused a lot of the early security issues that we've been talking about. You had to get into that stadium. That was life and death. In 1994, I think everybody got turned on to this, including FIFA, getting back to the money grab. I think they saw such a potential market for another potential big event that I think they've overreached. And as Alexi said, and Bob mentioned, and I know I certainly know Lauren's developing a lot of legacy programs in New Jersey. It's out of control. We did not have a train that came to the Meadowlands in '94. We didn't have a train stop. We did have some parking. We did a lot of park and rides. It worked okay. Turning commuters off and disrupting their life so that you could keep parking spaces open so that John or Jane doesn't take that spot up in the morning going to work, and it's left for Bob or Bill later on in the day. I get it. But the thing that spoiled, in my mind, the Super Bowl at MetLife Stadium was the parking and the transit that occurred, the mishaps that occurred afterwards. I certainly hope that does not color this, because there's such a wave and such a momentum. People now know what soccer is in the United States. And there was such a high, and Alexi, whether it was your hair or your defending, you carried it forward for about another year. It took another year to set up the MLS, but we all know what it is now. I think there's people making some decisions, maybe in the transit world, who may not be. I don't think they're making the right decision. I understand there'll be some park and ride opportunities. I understand them trying to clear out the lots. I understand them trying to empty up the seats in the trains. But I really hope they don't mess up the good work that the host committee and Lauren and her team and the governor, the two governors in New Jersey, did, because that was a big black mark for the Super Bowl, and it shouldn't have been. We all know what football is now, soccer. It's not the Maras. It's not the Joneses and in American football. It is a huge cultural, emotional, religious, full into it day. And it shouldn't be spoiled, in my opinion, by the ticket prices in excess, not being able to access the ticket prices, or horrible experience trying to get out of the Meadowlands property. I'm worried about it, quite frankly.
So how are we addressing this transportation issue, Lauren?
So I'll preface this with saying that story was leaked, and we do have our mobility plan coming out in the next couple of days. So you'll have more details on that. But I actually just want to take a step back. When we first started thinking about planning, which actually happened in 21, we started already doing our planning then, budgeting then, thinking about economic impact then. It became very real to us when we started seeing some of these numbers, both on the cost side and on the economic impact side, that we really had something big before us. And when you think about it, this is not only the biggest sporting event to happen in the world, it is the biggest event to ever happen in the world. And a lot of that comes with a lot of obligations and responsibilities that Alexi was talking about. And when we think about us in this region in New York, New Jersey hosting the final, in 2022, the final of the FIFA World Cup men's final had 1.5 billion viewers, not social media, but viewership, general viewership. We project for 2026, July 19th, over 3 billion global viewers. And so with that comes like the magnitude of making sure that we deliver at the highest level. And so I do have to say, I have a lot of respect and admiration for our transportation agencies in both New York and New Jersey. And we started that planning in earnest with our, the host committee set the table, and we had New York and New Jersey all around it since 2022, actively planning. And when we think about what the demands are on us at the stadium and what the current infrastructure is, it is sort of taking shape in this mobility plan. And it is multimodal, and we do have challenges with limited parking and needing to think through park and rides. But I do have to say the plan that will be rolled out shortly took years of thought, had safety at the front and foremost of it all, and making sure that our commuters too can get to where they need to be. So more to come on that. But I think that you will be happy on July 13th, June 13th, June 22nd, June 25th. We have 8 matches, and on July 19th with the plan.
Can I ask you, talked about the viewership from Qatar in 22 and what you expect in 26, doubling, right?
Yes.
On what basis is that projection made?
So we work with FIFA on those projections, and
FIFA accounting.
Well, we worked with FIFA to get a lot of the viewership, and then
Yeah.
we also hire a number of outside consultants that do the analysis with us. But
Yeah.
It is based on data.
Yeah. Data.
I want to go back to the
Yeah.
transportation plan. I know there's only so much you can say, but is there anything any kernel you can give us about the plan or a piece of the plan that we're going to see?
It's heavy on public transportation. We all sat at the table, assessed current infrastructure. The host committee is also coming in to supplement. We're part of the multimodal. The host committee will be running a private carrier bus service. We have to identify all the park and rides. We work to make sure everyone plays nicely in the sandbox. We, though, have to defer to New Jersey Transit and MTA and certain operational plans that they have. So I think you're going to see heavy public transportation. And then FIFA obviously also moves a contingency. They move about 20,000 spectators themselves. So we work within their modeling and try to work with the pieces of the puzzle that we have before us.
So 20,000 out of the 80,000 going to games in East Rutherford will be on VIP buses, things like that.
They're all types of different constituent groups from FIFA. Yeah.
They're not in the cheap seats, though. These are the folks probably in the front rows, I would imagine, who are getting FIFA, squiring them.
They're majority
Yeah.
commercial partners.
Yeah.
I want to take us inside the lines and talk about the U.S. team, and I'll turn to you, Alexi. There, shall we say, been some challenges lately with the U.S. team. As you look at, we don't we don't have a full roster yet, but as we head into the final roster cuts and how the U.S. is playing heading into the World Cup, how do you see the U.S. team and our chances of success?
Yeah, so if you had asked me back in 1994 when I was running around like with all that hair ago, what the summer of 2026 would look like 32 years later, I think I would have absolutely said, all right, we're going to win the World Cup. We will have made the progress. I would have probably in my 90s brain had it all be linear, and we're vying for a World Cup on home soil. And so in that sense, I'm a little disappointed, but maybe I'm being greedy and or still naive, despite my age. So when I think about this team, that's a long way of saying that, I think we're where we kind of have always been in a certain sense of where people believe this team is going to finish up. When I look at our group, I think that this is not just a good group. I think it's a completely winnable group. And this gets into something where I think that we have to go into this World Cup, not being Pollyanna, but having higher expectations. Going to a men's World Cup, we've done that plenty of times. All right. Getting out of the group, we've done that plenty of times. Winning the group, we've done that. Hell, back in 2002, we were arguably a handball away from going to a semifinal. And so seeing things that we haven't seen before, how does that manifest? I don't know how it manifests on the scoreboard, but whenever that final whistle blows, I would hope that we are looking back at the campaign and saying, you know what, I'm proud of that. That was something that I hadn't seen before, and that was awesome. Maybe it's winning the World Cup. Maybe it's getting to the quarterfinals or whatever it ends up being. But I think we should expect more from this team. They have, and I'm going to grumpy old man it a little bit here, but they have been given absolutely everything in terms of opportunities and resources and pathways that didn't exist when I was growing up, let alone when I was going to the World Cup. And so with that should come higher expectations. They're incredibly talented. They've been cultivated from a young age. In the previous World Cup, they were the second youngest team in the World Cup. So now they should be coming of age, and we should see what they're doing. They're playing in some of the great leagues in the world. I will say this when it comes to, and it gets back to the hair in a strange way. Nowadays, the kids call it branding, okay? But the persona that you are, I'm talking to you today because of a World Cup. I live the power of what a World Cup can do to an individual. And whether you're Christian Pulisic or Weston McKennie or these guys that are making millions of dollars, there are going to be lots of people that are going to see them for the first time. And they are going to see this brand of who they are as American soccer players for the first time. So again, I would hope that they or their agents are saying, hey, you need to grab a hold of this moment, because there's nothing better than a World Cup except for one thing. And that's a home World Cup. So that's a long way of saying I am bullish, maybe more so than others, about this team, because if they are able to harness that magic of a World Cup, they can do things, like I said, that we haven't seen before.
But within the last 90 minutes, the technical director of U.S. Soccer, Matt Crocker, quit to take a job in Saudi Arabia. And Landon Donovan goes on that thing they call the worldwide interwebs and says he's happy. The guy was never buying in, and essentially saying good riddance. All right, so take us into the Palace intrigue as much as you may be able to do. I mean, this is a crappy look 2 months from the World Cup.
Horrible. Yeah, it's a bad look. And so for those that don't know, a sporting director in a soccer sense is kind of like a GM. And so this is, a GM before the World Cup, I guess, or before the for the Super Bowl, just kind of going away. This is a man who is the architect of all of the teams, including the women's team, I should say. So he has hired both Emma Hayes and Mauricio Pochettino. He rehired Greg Berhalter and then moved on to Mauricio Pochettino. And so this is kind of everything coming to fruition. And so two months before the World Cup, for him to not just step down, by the way, but step down and go to Saudi Arabia, which is in the World Cup. So a competitor before the World Cup, it makes no sense. It's a bad look, I think, for him. I think it's a bad look for the United States Soccer Federation, and we're always talking about the dysfunction both on and off the field of the United States Soccer Federation. And it's also just a bad look about soccer. I can't not tell you the amount of people that aren't into soccer that, we this past international window, we lost a couple games. and the sky is falling. All is lost. We're never going to do anything. But that's the information that they get. It's very minimal, but it's incredibly important. And so these moments that we have with news coming out, people are like, wait a second, the GM just resigned before the World Cup. For a lot of people, maybe that aren't into it, what does that look like? And people that are into it, by the way, looks like he's jumping off the ship. There's something not good. There's a problem now. So it's not a great look, like I said, to go into a World Cup, but not insurmountable. I mean, and he's not going to kick a single ball for the U.S. or for Saudi Arabia, if that matter.
So what's your expert prediction? How far will the U.S. go?
Yeah, so you win the group, and then you get to this new round of 32, okay, a knockout round, at which point, for the first time in World Cup history, the U.S., I think, will be playing against a team where everybody kind of agrees that we're better than. And it's a very difficult transition to become, we're really good at being the underdog, right? And being Cinderella. But it's difficult when you are expected to win. But you also want the easiest path. And so this is the easiest path by finishing first in the group, which I think they'll do. Then I think that they play this team in the round of 32, which I think that they will rise to the occasion and beat. And now we're back to the round of 16, where we've kind of always been, where you need a little help from the soccer gods. And people will be looking at this matchup as a team that is maybe better than us, or at the very least on our level. I think they do, again, find some magic this summer. I also think that Americans are dying to celebrate America. We've already seen it recently with hockey. We've seen it with baseball. People want to celebrate America. Well, not for nothing, on our 250th birthday, what I feel is the greatest country in the world. So there's a lot going on. If, again, we can harness that, and this team feels that this country is coming together to celebrate the country, again, through that lens of the World Cup, there's some magic there. So now you're back to the getting out of the round of 16, which is a feat in and of itself, notwithstanding the anomaly that 2002 was. And then I think they go out in the round of in the quarterfinals.
You follow the U.S. team very closely, Bob. How far do you think we'll go? And we asked that very question in our sports poll, and we're going to put those results up. But how far will we go?
I mean, I think the round of 16. I agree. That's where we have normally peaked. By the way, the handball that was never called in 2002 was our former colleague Michael Ballack, who we would always remind him of that ball in the Germany-U.S. match back in 2002. But I mean, these numbers. Look, soccer fans say the round of 16. Avid fans pretty much the same. And I think Alexi makes the point. You know, the round of 32 is going to be a new experience for everybody, because you will have the haves and the have-nots meeting in a knockout round. But you know, the one thing the U.S. team, you talk about brands and these players branding themselves, and I would be disappointed if it took a commercial, the possibility of commercial riches to motivate players, and I don't think that's the case. But the one quality, and Alexi knows this well, that the U.S. team has always had: always fit, always trained, always could run their butts off and outwork the other side. And that work, you know, that's what brought the magic of the Landon Donovan goal in 2010, that at the death put the U.S. into the knockout round. That spirit infuses the U.S. team. I'd like to see it return, and I'm sure it will. But you know, the ball takes funny bounces.
It does indeed. And we can't talk about this World Cup without talking about the political climate, not only in this country, but internationally. So we're at war right now with Iran. Iran is coming here, and the issues with immigration and ICE and everything that's going on in the world. I'll ask you, Lauren, are you guys kind of just putting on blinders and saying we can control what we can control, or how much of this, this climate, is constant music that is playing in the background?
Sure. So I think we think about this a couple ways. I mean, we can't completely put on blinders. Our community, we're out and about all the time and speaking with folks in New York and New Jersey about these real issues of immigration, and a number of them feeling worried and scared to come to events. We would get faced with this question all the time. We work very closely with our other host cities, as well as the federal government and White House, to talk about how this is going to be managed during the tournament. We also talk about the legacy of it all. For us, though, we, as a host committee, we are limited in what we can do. We're not an enforcer, an operator in that sense. And the best we could do is continue to voice our concerns to the White House Task Force. And we continue to keep a dialogue and an open communication about how policing will happen locally with our New Jersey State Police, as well as our NYPD, working with the federal government, the Department of Homeland Security. We're like lock and step. And again, we voice concerns about making sure that people feel safe and secure. And we do then have to defer to the authorities on that. I will say this, though. I think working on the World Cup for so long, we watched what happened in 2022 and sort of the sentiment going into it in Qatar and the negative noise around the games. I went to Doha. I felt very safe, had a great experience. All of that noise sort of disappeared, and really the true reason why we were there were the games and soccer. And so the countries and the teams and the joy of it all sort of rose above, and FIFA, to be honest with you, fell in the distance. And so I don't see that changing. But these are real issues that we face, and we have to address it with the community. But I think on July 11th, it will be all about the teams and the game and our community coming together in a true celebration.
Can I ask you, in your conversations with the federal government, with the White House, Andrew Giuliani, who's, I guess, overseeing it at the White House level, you mentioned Homeland Security. In the last month and a half, as we've seen ICE enforcement go from one extreme to a more muted picture, what sort of discussions have there been about an understanding, or has there been an understanding of what ICE presence around these matches will be?
If anything, we've discussed them coming in as a support, like a extra hands on deck, just simply because of
ICE?
Just because of the amount of people that we'll have in the region. The federal government may need them as a resource, not to perform immigration enforcement, but instead to perform sort of general security.
So they've said if we bring ICE in to supplement security, would not be for immigration enforcement.
No, that's correct.
Michael, how much does this concern you, knowing what you know about an event like this and our region and where we are in the world today?
I agree with Lauren's observation that for 2+ hours, people put down their political concerns, their terroristic political views, and just enjoyed the game, controlling how they get to the game, monitoring how they get in the stadium, making sure there's adequate security and warnings and public information, which I'm sure she has in her game plan, is key. But what we found in 1994 was we were over-prepared, which we wanted to be, and people just came and had a great time. And I believe with most American sports, I mean, I think the international flavor of a World Cup makes you start thinking about world geopolitical problems and wars and the Strait of Hormuz and homegrown terror. I mean, your mind starts wandering. But I'll get back to Bob Lee's point. At these ticket prices and the transportation challenges that will be solved to get in, I think people are just looking to have a good time. So I think preparing as though there might be a problem, I think, is prudent, and I think that's what New Jersey is doing, New York, New Jersey. But I believe, as with every large sporting event, whether it's a Super Bowl or a Final Four, whatever, everybody in America always likes to have conspiracy theories. This is the target. This is when they're going to strike. It hasn't happened. I don't believe it's going to happen in my heart of hearts. I do believe this is such a terrific event that people are going to just come enjoy themselves. And if they want to exercise any of their political beliefs or anger at the world, they'll do it some other place. That's my heart of heart feeling.
Alexi, let me take you back to Lyon, France, 1998. You were in uniform that day. U.S.-Iran. When the United States played Iran, there was the mixed team picture. I broadcast that game. You were there. I remember the security cordon around that stadium, starting with the French military a mile out. What was the atmosphere around the game with all the political cloud around it, the security concerns, not to mention it was the match that put us out of the World Cup, so we had to get a result. We didn't that day. But what was that day like with all that scrutiny and security consideration and political issues?
Yeah, I mean, notwithstanding Mike's ideal, what I think we all share, politics and international sports are always going to mix, and geopolitical things are always going to be a part of big international events. That's just kind of the way it is. In 1998, like you mentioned, we played against Iran. I look at it as almost, because we also played against them in 2022, and very two distinct types of feelings. In that, in 1998, obviously it was before the craziness of the internet and the information age that we are in right now. And you're talking to a kid who grew up in the 70s and grew up with what Iran was. And so there was, I don't want to say an animosity, and yeah, we took the picture together, but this was still, for lack of a better word, an enemy, and a traditional enemy. And yeah, we're just playing soccer out there, but there was a much more standoffish type of way that we approached that game. Fast forward to 2022, and being there was a real melancholy from the Iranian team in that in 98, they wanted to be there with whatever baggage they brought and we brought. They owned it almost. And in 2022, there was a real melancholy from that team. And you could sense it, on and off the field. And now when we look at, what's happening right now, I would love nothing more than to be the complete opposite, in that Iran plays in this World Cup, and I think that they will. They just announced that they're going to play a friendly against Puerto Rico in the United States. So it looks like they're planning to play, and I hope that they do. I'm here in Los Angeles. They will be playing some games here. The incredible Iranian American community. I think there's an opportunity to champion and to celebrate these players and this team in this moment on this big stage, that I think, maybe going back to Mike's point, is kind of what international sports can be, but there will be politics. I mean, I think regardless of your thoughts about President Trump, I think this will ultimately go down, or he will ultimately go down as the soccer president. The amount of soccer that emanates from the White House and from the Oval Office, I think everybody can admit, is constant, because look, he's also a smart politician, and he recognizes this platform. He recognizes the soft power opportunities out there. So, I know that's a long answer to your question, but it's amazing how all of these things come up. And yes, there is history, and yes, there is stuff that doesn't change, but there's also stuff that does change. And again, I go back to that word, an opportunity in this moment where we're just kicking a soccer ball, but in a sense, we're doing so much more to celebrate people and to celebrate countries and cultures, even in the midst of a war. And maybe in this case, when Iran is playing here in the United States, the incredible Iranian American community, but also Americans celebrate, and in doing so, celebrate a hope for what is, a better future for that country coming soon.
There's a lot, obviously, that goes into bringing a World Cup here. You mentioned, Lauren, that you started planning in 2021. In your mind, from your seat, what's going to make this a successful World Cup here?
A couple things. When I left Doha, I remember my biggest takeaway was the seamless communication and seamless process that the Supreme Committee, the country, and FIFA had put in place. And I think for us, emulating that and modeling after that, making sure that we already have that relationship with New York, but this is like really taking up the scale and scope of it in a different way. And so for me, that we are operating at max capacity with those communications. I think too, coming together, as a community, New York and New Jersey, we are so strong individually, but like what a powerhouse together. And there's great things they bring to the table and awesome, amazing things New Jersey brings to the table. So for me to make sure that New Jersey gets global recognition and reputational positioning globally will be a true success as well.
In your mind, Bob, what's going to make this a successful World Cup?
Some memorable moments and storylines and figures emerging. I'll add getting to July 19th at night without there having been any incidents, attempted breaches of security. This is so tempting a target. I know, Michael, what you've said, but I mean, you read what Anthropic is capable of doing if it gets out of its sandbox with AI and whatnot. And this is like somebody sitting there in Belarus looking at this saying, oh, I don't know. So I hope and pray that is what happens. And as somebody who grew up in Jersey, that they're playing the final here in Jersey, that means a lot. That counts for a lot.
I'll ask you guys, Mike and Alexi, the same question. I'll start with you, Mike. What's going to make this a successful World Cup 2026?
Yeah, Bob, not to diminish your 8 Mile homegrown location from the old Giant Stadium. I went to Giant Stadium after 9/11, hoping to see 80,000 people leave all their baggage and fears outside. Security was tough. Lauren, I'm sure you've got, I don't know how many rings of security, 3, 4, whatever. There'd be security out at Rutt's Hut, I'm sure. But
great dogs.
Yeah, great hot dogs. Sorry, Alexi, if you haven't had one, but you'll get one when you come to New Jersey. But the feeling that I had after I left, I watched the football game, and there was terrorism going on in the United States. I remember seeing the smoke driving to work at the World Trade Center. There was some great football plays. I apologize, Bob. I don't have your computer memory of whether a pass was caught with one hand, one finger, or whether one toe was in bounds on the last touchdown. But there were some great plays, and I got to enjoy 3 hours relief from everything that was going on outside. I rejoined it when I got back outside. Unfortunately, it was all over the news. But I just hope some people, and I'm a New Jerseyan my whole life as well. I hope people respect the job that Lauren and her team are doing. I hope people have a different view, if they have had a neutral view or worse, of New Jersey. Communications, great storylines, and then just catapulting soccer in the United States with some great stories, some great personalities. Just like, as I mentioned earlier, I didn't mean to talk about your hair. I have very little, but you carried 1994 into 1996. You embodied what a professional soccer player was, and the energy and excitement and the charisma and the true value of the sport. I hope that comes across, not just based on the soccer between the lines, but based on people having that great same feeling about things that happen in New Jersey.
I'll ask you the same question, Alexi. What's going to make this a successful World Cup?
Yeah, so I mean, this is on our watch, right? It will reflect on, obviously, soccer in the United States and Canada to Mexico, but we're talking about the U.S. here. It will reflect on the venues. So in this case, obviously New Jersey, but all of the different venues. It will reflect on us as Americans. It will reflect on the president. By the way, it's a good thing that the White House is involved and engaged. That's a good thing. I want them to have ownership of this and recognize that, you can screw up a lot of things around here, but if it's on your watch that you screwed up the World Cup, that is the legacy that you don't want. And so that really gets back to the other part, which is legacy. That's what a successful World Cup is many years from now. Like I said, there's a kid that's, I don't know, maybe playing for the U.S. team, whether it's men's or women's, and says, man, that summer of 2026, what I saw, it changed the way that I think about the game. It changed the way that I think about my country. And again, it goes back to what I said at the beginning, people coming into the tent. People came in 94 and plenty of them left, but a lot of them stayed, and they got that, what is the greatest infection in the world, and for some incurable, which is the game. And I want more people to get infected in the most positive sense with soccer, at whatever level it ends up being. At the very least, they leave with a greater respect and an understanding for what soccer is, especially when it's played in a World Cup with all of the colors and the music and the flavor and the coming together and the unity and the excitement that goes well beyond the actual kicking of the ball. We've talked a lot about it here, but that's a success for this World Cup.
We have time for a few questions. If you have a question, we'll try to call on you. Let's start right here in the middle. If you could stand up, go ahead, Chris, and identify yourself and direct your question to one of the panelists.
Do you expect the city of New York, the city of New Jersey, to be going through the same motions as they have, with these other big events coming? It's been described since 2020, 2021 that this is going to be the decade of sport for the U.S. with the World Cup, with the Olympics, other smaller events. So do you see the government kind of cooperating with FIFA within that model, or do you think FIFA is going to go back to more traditional ways of organizing things kind of centrally without so much local community input? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. So I can't speak for FIFA, but I can say that for New York, New Jersey, and the host committee, we really hope we're leaving a playbook for future teams that are going to come together to plan and organize, not only with FIFA for the Women's World Cup. We hope to become a host region as well. I know the host cities haven't been named yet for the Women's World Cup, but we are in it for rugby. I believe New York City is hosting soccer for the Olympics at our new stadium there in Queens. And so I think for us as a host committee, we're hoping we leave a playbook so that the infrastructure of planning is there, regardless of how FIFA or the organizing entities go about it. We very much consider this our home, and we're in charge of how this really plays out. In the end, FIFA can say, or any organizing entity can say what they want, but we really feel a sense of responsibility here, and we'll deliver at the highest levels that we think for a world-class event. I, again, can't speak for FIFA, but I think there's so many lessons learned. I can't imagine they approach it the same way, though. So I can't say for certain how they're going to go about it for 31. But I imagine it will look a little different on the ground.
What's interesting about 2031 is a report in today's Guardian out of Manchester, England, that some of the potential host cities for 2031 are, if not pulling out, losing interest in dealing with FIFA because of the experiences that have been reported, be it ticket, be it security, whatever the demands were. So it'd be very interesting to see what the final list of host cities will be, because it's reported that some cities are having second thoughts of not wanting to deal with this.
Let's go.
We are still.
Well, you've got the infrastructure. Every reason that. Plus, you're the capital of the world. Yes.
Let's go over here.
Hello, my name is Steve Barboza. I'm a senior double major in marketing sports management. My question is for Alexi. Alexi, I'm Costa Rican. We sadly didn't make the World Cup. We're a small country. Hopefully make it 2030. But my question is, can you describe the economy impact and national team development of not making a World Cup? Thank you.
So first off, shame on Costa Rica at a point where it's an expanded World Cup, and CONCACAF, the region that we play in, had a potential to have 8 teams, I think, go to the World Cup. Obviously, the 3 hosts, but in a qualifying round where the United States, Canada, and Mexico aren't even involved. I mean, come on, that's just not good from the Ticos there. So, all right, I've got that out of the way. Look,
anytime you can talk down the Costa Rican side, Alexi, is a good day for a U.S. national team player. Said with love.
By the way, when people ask me the most difficult place ever to play, a lot of times people will say the Azteca, one of the venues, by the way, for the World Cup down in Mexico City. It actually ends up being Saprissa Stadium, an old Saprissa Stadium, which was in Costa Rica, and it was the proverbial Thunderdome down there. But it showed how important soccer was and how fervent and passionate the fans are down there. And so in this moment, when even more of the world is getting to celebrate, I mean, we have the likes of Cape Verde and Curacao and Uzbekistan and Jordan, these new debutantes here, and teams that haven't been back forever, like Haiti. this is a moment that you're going to miss out on. Yes, the Costa Ricans can celebrate the World Cup, but not having your team there, but more importantly, not having your team there, having been there before and actually done very, very well at different times, that's got to hurt. And that's got to be painful. And you will stunt in terms of the growth because the interest, it doesn't wane too much, but it certainly wanes. The money's not there. I mean, literally the money from a practical perspective isn't there to be gained. But if we go back to the ticket prices, who knows? Maybe it filters down to Costa Rica in that sense, and that next generation that will bring you back to the World Cup is made whole or is given the opportunity because of the 2026 World Cup.
You mentioned Saprissa Stadium. Talking about world politics, you know what's replaced Saprissa Stadium is a gleaming, fairly new, I was there about 10 years ago, marble floored stadium built for Costa Rican football by China.
Huh.
That's their gift.
Other questions?
Stand by.
Manny?
My name is Manny Pereira. I'm a freshman here in the Seton Hall Sports Media program. Alexi, this question's for you. What do you think it's going to take in terms of performance from the U.S. team to captivate the nation and create new soccer fans? And do you think that's solely connected to wins and losses?
I mean, yes, we are a country that bases a lot on winning and losing, and nothing is more of an antidote or a potion, if you will, than winning. Having said that, and we only need to look at what happened recently again with the Olympic hockey team, the men's and women's Olympic hockey team, but also the personality. Your front teeth are knocked out and you're bleeding all over the place, and you are a winner. I mean, that's the wonderful combination of personality and success. And so I think you will discover players. You probably know some of the players out there, but you will discover players this summer in the context of a World Cup. And again, I point back to that power and that platform. And the ball went the right way for me. It could have gone the wrong way for me, and all the stars aligned. And I'll tell this story really quick. So right a couple weeks before the World Cup, I got on a plane. I sat in the middle seat in economy, which is what we did as the national team. And I sat down next to an older Southern woman, and we struck up a conversation. And she turned to me and she said, "Son, what do you do?" I said, "Well, ma'am, I play soccer." She said, "Son, what's your job?" I said, "Well, ma'am, I play soccer." She said, "Son, how do you make money?" I said, "Well, ma'am, I play soccer." And 2 weeks later, or whatever it was, 3 weeks later, I'm in front of 1 billion people. And, that's, again, the power of what a World Cup can do. And I think, and I'm excited because I think there are players on the U.S. team and other teams, but certainly on the U.S. team, that are going to live that power. And you can't plan it. It just kind of happens, and the soccer gods shine upon you. And sometimes it's the player that you thought it was going to be, and oftentimes it's not. So you'll meet some of these players, and their lives will be changed out of the summer of 2026, specifically, not just because it's a World Cup again, but because it's a home World Cup. And I think that's going to be fun to see. But you'll know it when you see it. People ask me what it looks like. It's like, the definition of obscenity for the Supreme Court, right? I can't tell you what it is, but I know it when I see it. You're going to know it when you see it. My lawyer over there is she's frowning. It's like, not quite, but whatever. Okay. But you know what I mean? You'll know it when you see it because you'll feel it. You'll feel it in your bones. You'll feel it in your blood. You'll feel it in your heart because it's something that speaks to you, because you've seen something that, again, makes you excited, but more importantly, it makes you proud.
We have time for one more.
Good afternoon. My name is Justin Loretz. I'm a sophomore here. My question is primarily directed toward Ms. LaRusso. Anyone else could step in if they like, but I know you specifically mentioned the projection from 1.5 billion viewers in 2022 to 3 billion in 2026. I understand that that's based on data, but do you think that data properly accounts for how good of a game it was in 2022, it being one of the best of all time, one of the best storylines, and also going into extra time and penalties?
I can't speak to all of that, but I probably so. I know that I'm sure all of us remember watching it. As the time was ticking on, my phone started blowing up. So you could tell that people were starting. And I do think in this day and age, when we have social media, you're getting alerts. So if you weren't watching, now all of a sudden you were. The ESPN notification was going off, like every single one of the news outlets. And so I do think, not having any scientific data to speak to, that probably though it definitely happened. I think though why we will have more viewership is because of the growth of the game and also the teams. We're at 48 teams, which is significantly more than in the most that FIFA's ever had for a World Cup. And so you have more countries participating that never have before, or that haven't in a very long time. And so you'll have more viewership because of that as well. But that's not my scientific based opinion, but point of view.
As good as the 2022 final was, and it was riveting, great ad for the game and for all the emotions that Alexi spoke about. To me, even more compelling, I stayed up late when they flew back to BA to Buenos Aires, and as they tried to bust this team through the city. And if you remember what happened, there were millions of people down the Grand. I don't know BA well. I don't know the name of the street, but they eventually had to lift these guys out of the bus because the buses couldn't go. I mean, they're in just, I was middle of the night, I think, here watching it, was encapsulated what winning a World Cup means to a nation who didn't win their first one. And their first one was won under horrible circumstances in 1978. Read up on the politics surrounding that, when tortured prisoners within earshot of the final stadium could hear the finals. But that celebration in Argentina in 2002 or 22 was emblematic of what this event is about and what it can be. Can't wait for it.
Professor DeLuca, you get the last question.
All right, final two-parter. To Alexi, I was in Dortmund in 2006 for Italy-Germany for that semifinal as an ESPN executive, and it was wonderful. Would you please explain to me why my grandparents' home country, and where I have maybe a second citizenship, has become a baseball country and it is not in the last 3 World Cups? And the second part of the question is, Michael, I'll ask you just to finish with, you did the 94 World Cup. How did that compare to the last time a Final Four was in a small building, which was the Meadowlands in 96? Alexi, help me.
Mamma mia, che vergogna, no? It's absolutely, I mentioned if you had asked my former self back in 1994 what it would look like, I told you what it would look like. If you had also asked me back in 1994, or if you had told me back in 1994 that Italy were to have missed 3 World Cups in a row, I would have laughed in your face. That's how preposterous it is. And yet here we are. You got no one to blame but yourselves. You've been given opportunity after opportunity, a strange European championship within that to give yourself light. We all know that Serie A as a league has fundamentally changed. It's gone up, it's gone down, it's gone back up. What it is right now, we have this conversation all the time about our professional league and how much it impacts, or how much it is supposed to impact our national team, and whether we're doing everything relative to the national team, or even if there is a correlation or a responsibility to the national team. That's a long way of saying it's obvious that in Italy, all of your best athletes are playing other sports, promotion, relegation, the competition with other sports. You're giving trophies to everybody, all the different excuses that I hear when it comes to why the U.S. men's team has not won a World Cup. Now you can take all of that and figure it out yourselves. But man, oh man, it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing for the World Cup. Obviously, it's not a good thing for Italian fans, but it's also not a good thing for the World Cup. We would have loved to have seen them there, given what they bring, obviously given their history, but it's not to be. And then again, in an expanded World Cup, you couldn't quite figure it out, but you had plenty of opportunities. So I'm sorry, maybe the next one.
So the Italians are out of the World Cup and out of the papacy.
There you go. We're taking over. They need some quotas over there in Serie A and over there in the Vatican.
Yeah, that's not happening. Michael.
The Vatican has a very low crime rate, though. I heard about this the other day. The Pope is
that Swiss guard is tough.
The Pope is strong on crime, I believe. I really do. But back up. We did the 2007 Cricket World Cup in the Caribbean. and I follow cricket. Don't make fun of me. But in 22 or 24, they had 1.5 billion people watch the finals of cricket. So I do believe the estimates that FIFA's putting out, particularly with 2 more years of promotion, accessibility, et cetera. I think those numbers are ready to be hit. Len, the Final Four and the World Cup were very, very different. In the Final Four, it was the culmination of a full year. We watched all those teams. 64 of them. We watched them play. Their hearts were broken when they lost. There were only 4 teams, obviously, in the building at the time. But in 7 months, they were going to play basketball again. In the World Cup, you got to wait 4 years again, and the global nature and the enthusiasm of the international visitors, to me, outshined the alumni of the 4 schools. So I was a bigger fan of the World Cup than I was the Final Four. Each of them major events, a lot of work, a lot of logistics, but hard to compare them both. But soccer would probably come out on top.
Well, great. Well, thank you to our panel here in the room, Lauren and Bob, and online, Alexi and Mike. You guys have been terrific. Thank you all for coming today. Regardless of the climate, what happens June 11th through July 19th, we'll be watching. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks for the opportunity. Thank you.